In this video, I will take a look at Stepford's relatively new rapid transit system, the Stepford Metro. It's worth noting this system also covers Berrily, Benton and Morganstown, and this video is going to be fairly long. Now let's get right into it. The Stepford Metro currently operates 26 routes across 34 stations, covering the urban areas of Stepford, Barton, Berrily, Benton and Morganstown. It connects a variety of places from the piers of Stepford Bay to the crazy football games at Stepford UFC and the bustling container port at Port Benton. The system has very high frequencies on most lines, and overall it's fast and reliable. We'll start off with the trains as usual. Metro has 5 different trains, and the first one we'll be taking a look at is the Class 398. The Class 398 is built by Stadler on the CityLink platform. A large number of Class 398 units were recently delivered to Metro to operate on the Whitney Green tram link. These units can operate both on tram tracks and regular heavy rail, allowing them to do every Metro route except for the Morganstown Docks line. These units also have a battery mode. The Class 555 is up next, which is based on the Stadler Metro platform. It features fully longitudinal seating, a high standing capacity, and is also light rail compatible. These trains can commonly be seen on the Morganstown and Stepford UFC lines, and they look especially good in the UFC area, particularly at this bridge entering Whitefield Lido. The Class 717 is the only non-Stadler train on Metro, manufactured by Siemens. It's also the only train with an emergency exit at the front door, due to the tunnels at Moorgate being too tight. It is, however, the longest and fastest train on Metro, having previously served Stepford Connect. A Stadler Flirt is coming at us with the Class 756. This beast can commonly be seen on the Benton line, with part of its services running all the way to Morganstown via Morganstown Docks. The seating is the most comfortable on Metro, and it feels slightly like a regional train, maybe because Flirt has regional in the name. It can also be found on the Stepford Bay line. And finally, the Class 777 is the universal multi-tool of Metro. It can be found anywhere on the electrified Metro network. This train needs no introduction. It's also the only Metro train to feature a map of the network inside. It's also the most common train on the Barton Loop. It features a nice mix of sitting and standing space, door lights and chimes, and all around is a perfect fit for the network. Metro's right-of-way is quite varied, with a nice balance of level running, elevated rail in the Victoria area, the Corner and Barton tunnels, and now even a tramway. The majority of Metro's lines are fully grade separated except for the tramway and part of the Morganstown line. It mostly has its own tracks, but it also shares a fair bit of its tracks with Stepford Connect. There are 3 parts to the Metro network, and the first is, well, Metro. This part of the network covers Willowfield, Stepford Victoria, Stepford UFC, Barton, Morganstown and Port Benton. The Metro proper part of the network is entirely heavy rail, fully electrified, and most of its tracks are either independent, like in the Metro Core, or shared with Connect. Metro proper also has a few distinct routes, namely the Willowfield line, Benton line, Berrily line, Barton line, UFC line, and the Morganstown line. All of these are served by multiple routes, making the system as a whole fairly confusing. All trains can run in the Metro proper part of the network, and it doesn't really have a solid schedule or frequency. Trains pass through the Metro Core, which is the densest part of the network, approximately every minute or two in each direction, which is insane, especially with the entire core being double-tracked. The Bay Shuttle is a separate part of the Metro network, only accessible to the Class 398 and 756. The line starts at Willowfield and it goes on the unelectrified Stepford Bay line. The electrification ends at Beachley, so only bi-mode units can run here. There is one stop at Cadoxton before arriving at Stepford Bay. The frequency on this line is relatively decent, and it often only has one Class 756 running on it, as part of this route is also covered by the tram train. The tram train is the latest addition to the Metro network, starting at Whitney Green and ending at either Stepford Bay or Stepford Victoria. The line is operated by Class 398s, which can function as both a tram and a train, hence the name. This line has a train approximately every 5 minutes, and it can go either via Barton or Berrily. Part of it is also battery only between Berrily and Greenslade. Overall, the trams are very frequent and comfortable. However, they tend to feel out of place whenever they leave the tram train line. On the actual line, they go at a decent-ish speed, and frequently run in double formation to increase capacity, although I do think they might need a bit more standing room. We have these in Belgrade, these Swiss trams, and they have like a whole area at the back just for standing, so I think that's something that could be replicated on the Class 398 Metro, maybe in a future refurbishment. Now, we'll go over all of the routes in the Metro system one by one. This segment may last fairly long as there's 26 routes, so if you've had enough at any point, feel free to skip to the next timestamp. The first route is R002 from Stepford Central to Port Benton. It's part of the Benton line and it's been in the game as a part of Connect since launch, having been transferred to Metro in May 2025. This line is quite beautiful and it's commonly run by the Class 717 and 756 trains. Up next we have R006 from Stepford Victoria to Port Benton. This line was also previously taken from Connect and really it's just an extension of R002. This one has mostly Class 777 and 756 trains. R008 takes us from Stepford Victoria to Berrily. It's a rather interesting line with what might be the smallest average stop spacing on Metro, especially from New Harrow to Berrily. This line is proudly dominated by Class 555s, as are many of the lines on the Morganstown branch. R021 is the first of 3 lines to Stepford UFC, and is also predominantly used by 555s. As I previously said, the 555 looks absolutely amazing on the UFC branch, almost like it was made for it. The UFC branch generally feels a bit more light railish, and the Class 555 is light rail compatible, so I can see why it looks that good. R023 goes from Stepford Victoria to Stepford UFC, and this one is entirely used by 717s. It's also the only free route on Metro. I wish it had less noobs on it, as this line and the rest of the UFC lines are amazing, but being stuck behind new players just makes it annoying. I get that we've all been there, but sometimes it's just very annoying. The next line is R027 from Stepford Central to Berrily. I really like this line as it's shorter than the full line to Stepford Victoria. This line is also commonly used by the Class 555, and it's relatively frequent. R028 goes from Stepford Victoria to Willowfield, and it's commonly used by 717s. The Willowfield line is heavily underdeveloped compared to the rest of Stepford, to the point that it's not even funny. Going along this line just feels bad. R029 is the same line but cut back to Beachley. This is the best route for grinding on Metro as it's short and the stops aren't too far apart. It's predominantly used by the Class 555. Also, since the Beachley rework, it looks great, definitely more so than the full line to Willowfield. R030 goes from Willowfield to Berrily via Barton, and honestly, any Barton through line is great in my books. Aside from the debatable scenery in the Willowfield line, this line makes sense and even has decent frequency. Another route from the rather lackluster Willowfield branch is R031 to Stepford UFC, predominantly run by 717s. This route is a decent one, but honestly not my favourite, and it has relatively horrible frequency on the network. And aside from that, as I said, the Willowfield branch needs a scenery rework in its entirety. R034 goes from Beachley to Morganstown, and is the only route that goes all the way to Morganstown but still via Ellesmere. This line is amazing, especially on the Class 555. The Morganstown line feels especially good after version 2.3, however the stop spacing feels a bit off after Berrily. I do really like this new freight siding in East Berrily, but no, that doesn't mean we are getting freight. This might be my favourite Metro line. R047 is yet another Connect takeover from St Helens Bridge to Port Benton. It's frankly just a shorter version of R002, and not that interesting IMO. It's occasionally served about once an hour by a Class 756. It's just flat out better to drive all the way to the Metro core. The first of the 2.2 Metro routes is R130 from Stepford Central to Morganstown, which was recently rerouted to go via Barton. This has done wonders for increasing frequency through Coxley Newtown. The route itself isn't too special, you can commonly see 777s on it though. R131 is the same route but cut back to St Helens Bridge, served occasionally by a 777. It also started going via Barton recently, and it's a nice route. Unlike R047, it still has a substantial distance to cover, so it feels good to drive it. R132 goes from Stepford Central to Barton via Coxley Newtown. The line then continues its next leg via Ellesmere. This line is operated by Class 777s every 10 or so minutes. The Barton Loop is a very nice line to go through, although Barton itself does feel a bit bland and has a lot less character than Liverpool Central. R133 goes from Willowfield to Barton, also in the clockwise direction. This line is served by one Class 777 and it's quite rare to see. It's a very long line that isn't served too often. R134 goes from St Helens Bridge to Barton, also clockwise. This route is served approximately every hour, and it's not that important. While it's nice to drive, metro services from the core to Barton already go decently often, so the line isn't too important. The first anti-clockwise route here is R135, from Beachley to Barton. It goes first via Ellesmere and then back to Beachley via Coxley Newtown. This line isn't as long as R133 and is served every 10 minutes by Class 777. R136 goes from Stepford Victoria to Barton, also anti-clockwise. It's served every 10 minutes by a Class 756 train. It's quite a decent route, but I don't quite have much to say about this. This route's trains also go to our next route, which is R137, from Stepford Victoria to Morganstown via Benton. I used to hate this line, but it's kinda grown on me, especially after the Morganstown shuttle got upgraded. This line goes every 15 or so minutes, so relatively frequently. The majority of my hate for this line came from how the long Class 756 could go across that old horrendous shuttle, but thankfully the shuttle is now gone and so is my hate for this line. R138 is skipped as we go to R139, from Stepford Bay to Greenslade. The majority of the lines from here are tram train exclusives, and I think SCR did a really good job with the trams, although I don't like the routes that only at Greenslade. If the route is already so long, why not just end it at Whitney Green? Also, maybe SCR could add some sort of line that goes from like St Helens Bridge or Barton to Whitney Green, so that I don't have to go all the way from Stepford Bay if I want to do the full route. R140 goes from Beachley to Stepford Bay, and if you're alone on the Stepford Bay branch, it's an excellent route for grinding, even better so than Beachley to Stepford Victoria, due to the fact that there's zero chance of noobs. This route is served by the Class 756 most often. R141 is basically the same line but extended to Willowfield, and in my opinion that actually hurts this line slightly, due to the lackluster scenery on the Willowfield branch I mentioned previously. Still a decent line, although I do still despise the lack of scenery. #fix Willowfield. R142 is the big one, from Stepford Bay to Whitney Green. It's the most popular tram train route, and it's great. I really like the fact that it goes all the way out to Whitney Green via Barton. It's also the most frequent tram train route, going every 8 or so minutes. I do have to say, aside from the aforementioned R034, this is another candidate for the best metro route in my opinion, even though it's not part of the main heavy rail network and is instead part of the tram train. It certainly takes the cake when it comes to the tram train. R143 goes from Stepford Central to Whitney Green, this time via Ellesmere. It's also a decent tram train route, and it was my first encounter with the tram train, as through what was presumably a glitch with the codes, I was able to get it at half price. I do prefer R142 though, because it goes via Coxley Newtown. And finally, R144 goes from Stepford Victoria to Greenslade. This route feels weird, again, because it terminates at Greenslade, but it's nice to have an interchange for the tram train at Stepford Victoria, although everyone tends to just use the Stepford Bay branch. We're finally done with all the routes, so let's look at where Metro can improve. The first thing Metro needs to do, and will always need to do, is to either stop serving Willowfield or take it over fully from Connect. Also, why does Connect still go over to Stepford Victoria? Actually, why not have all Connect services terminating at Stepford Central? This would mean that platforms 10 and 11 will become disused, but so what? Why does Connect still serve stations beyond Central? Add some temporary buffers and a track switch at platforms 10 and 11, and Connect would have 7 terminating platforms. The 5 that already exist are far too underused, so I'm sure even they would fit, but adding 2 more would definitely help. The Victoria, Beachley and Willowfield Connect routes would either get rerouted or deleted, and that's pretty much it. Aside from that, please improve the Metro core tunnels, like at least add some tunnelling at the junctions for Stepford Central and East, because these big openings just look wrong. Overall, Metro is one of the biggest parts of the Stepford rail network, connecting local residents across Stepford, Benton and Berrily with the rest of Stepford. It's high frequency, reliable, not overcrowded unless it's rush hour, it's everything you'd want in a metro system. I'm gonna give this operator a 9.7 out of 10. Thank you all for watching this video, and special thanks goes to my members whose names you can see on screen. They also get a day of early access to almost every video that comes out. Feel free to like, subscribe and join the Discord via the link in the description for more SCR content. Thank you once again for watching, and I'll see you soon. Goodbye.